Genshin Impact does not have an overarching villain in its story. Bold statement, I know, but let me say this. If I were to ask you who the villain in Genshin Impact is, what would you say? I would imagine the responses would differ based on the knowledge one has of the lore. Newcomers would probably posit that the Abyss Order and the Unknown God and the Hilichurls are the game's enemies. Intermediate players would answer the Tsarista and the Harbingers are the enemies. And finally, lore enthusiasts would come full circle with the newbies and once again reiterate that the villain in Genshin Impact is the Heavenly Principles. However, this is where I would slide right on in there and argue that based on how these three entities are being set up in game, they aren't villains, but rather antagonists. For those thinking that that's just semantics, no, you're wrong. An antagonistic entity is a plot device that's utilized to create obstacles and challenge the protagonist, whereas villains are more simply evil. They're bad guys, corrupt, hooligans, ruffians, thugs, if you will, who acts more out of malicious intent. So to put it more simply, villains are always antagonists, but antagonists aren't always villains. Why is that important? Well, let's look back on the three aforementioned enemies and delve into their motivations for doing what they do and why they might not fit the bill as a villain. First up is the Abyss Order, an organization that emanates from the Void Realm. They were founded by a Conrian named Clothar Alberich and formed for the purposes of overthrowing Celestia and reviving the homeland. It's no mystery why they seek to do this, seeing as some 500 years ago, Celestia decided to round up all the archons and I don't even know, they sort of just like blocked them to death. Look at all these cubes, man. The reasons for this are still a bit murky, won't lie, but nonetheless the end result still remained. An entire nation had been wiped off the map, leaving few survivors. Of those who survived the deadly blocking attack, they were cursed in two different ways. The curse of the wilderness, turning people into Hilichurls, and the curse of immortality, reserved for full-blood Conrians, rendering them immortal, cursed to walk Tivat forever. Clothar, who seemingly had the curse of immortality, saw all this happen and sort of just went, this is just some bullshit, guys. Come on, man. And was lucky enough to stumble upon an ancient deity in the form of a crystal that imbued him with abyssal powers. Having received a small taste of what the abyss was like, he, like many other crack addicts before him, decided to make it his whole, decided to make it his whole personality and spawned the terrorist organization known as the Abyss Order. It's with this abyssal power that the Abyss Order hopes will be enough to overthrow Celestia and in turn the rule of the gods. The Abyss Order is an interesting group because by all accounts their ultimate goal is to restore Conria and overthrow Celestia. And while some actions they do work towards that goal, like the Loom of Fates, there are other crimes that are just downright strange, like when they stole Klee's treasure. I'm not really sure how this could help them restore Conria, but to each their own, I suppose. Ultimate plan in that. With that said, however, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find people who aren't empathetic to the Abyss Order's situation. I don't think I used the word empathetic right there. I don't think most people have had their homelands wiped out. Seeing as they were once just ordinary citizens of Conria, I doubt they even know the truth of the cataclysm all those years ago. From their perspective, shit just literally hit the fan one day, and they got tucked in about 3 seconds flat by Celestia and the Archons. They lost their home, family, way of life, and as a result are pursuing any means necessary to exact vengeance. One important thing to note, however, is that the Abyss Order uses the power of the Abyss which resides in the Void Realm. So, should the Abyss Order ever succeed in their goals, the human realm would be completely wiped out due to the Void Realm and the Abyss's power being incompatible with the human and the heavenly realm. And I'm not sure if they know this, because at one point they tried to cure the Hilichurls of their curse, but even if they reverted them to humans, how long would they have? Anyway, so to summarize, the Abyss Order is an organization that aims to overthrow the rule of the gods due to their homeland being wiped out by the gods. I use the word gods a lot there. This is not my best writing, let me tell you folks. They care little for the costs and aim to accomplish this goal by any means necessary. So while they do perform, we'll go with heinous acts at times, ultimately it's for a reason. And while I get that every villain has a reason that they often refer to, everyone's moral compass works differently. And if I'm a monster for being sympathetic to the Abyss Order's cause, then rah, cause I'll eat your kids, nigga. I don't know. Next up, we have the Tsarista, who, like the Abyss Order, wants to overthrow Celestia. However, unlike the Abyss Order, who rely on the power of the Abyss to enforce their plans, the Tsarista uses the Fatui, of which the highest ranking officials are named the Harbingers. And let me just correct myself, I say she uses them, but she made them, right? But the point I was trying to make is the Abyss Order, exerts their will through the Abyss power, and she exerts her will through the Fatui. Make sense? Okay. Unlike the Abyss Order, we aren't sure why the Tsarista wants to wage a war with Celestia. We know very little of her relation with the Cataclysm, only that it changed her greatly according to Venti. However, among the ranks of the Fatui is Piero, who's a pure-blood Conrian with the curse of immortality. So, while I don't want to speculate on what her reasons are for wanting to overthrow Celestia, I just want to talk about that specific goal because it seems to be a rather popular one. A lot of heavy hitters support this idea of overthrowing Celestia. I mean, come on, I haven't seen this much widespread support for a plan since the Louisiana Purchase. Not only do the Tsarista and the Abyss Order want to overthrow the heavens, but so do the forces we wouldn't even consider antagonistic, namely the Sovereigns. Neuvillette gets extremely horny when talking about judging them and often refers to them as usurpers. Apep similarly calls them usurpers, but seems to have long since given up on trying to defy them, but hates them nonetheless.
Now that I have reclaimed one of the 7 authorities from the hands of the usurpers, I have regained my true form. I am now a fully fledged dragon, powerful enough to judge the rest of the gods. My final destiny is to judge the usurper king in the heavens above. But until that time comes, I will lend my power to you.
But wait, there's more, as there's another person who has a less than favorable opinion on the heavens, and that's Dainsleif, who once again is a pure-blood Conrian with the curse of immortality. That's 4 different players who, despite all not working together, share a similar goal and a deep hatred of Celestia. And I mean, what are the odds that all 4 are just objectively wrong in their hatred of the firmament? Anyway, before we do switch gears and end up talking about Celestia, I want to add one more point regarding the Tsarista Fatui dynamic. While I don't think the Tsarista is a bad person, there's no doubt that this bitch hires some fiends, bro. And I need look no further than a nigga named Doctor to confirm this. However, Dottore is ultimately still one man who does show respect to the Tsarista, so to call him the overarching villain of the story I think is a bit much. This game isn't deprived of villains, it's deprived of overarching villains. That big bad. Dottore's a bad, but he's not really going to show up in the endgame. I mean, barring some miraculous scenario in which case he becomes a major player in the endgame, right now he seems nothing more than a smaller problem when placed in the grand scheme of things. So with that said, let's talk about the secrets that the firmament hath shrouded. How could it be that every major player wants them skedaddled from Teyvat? The heavenly principles were brought on by the advent of the Primordial One. He came to Teyvat, diddly-bopped the Sovereigns, and gained the rights to shape Teyvat how he wanted. So right off the bat, we can see how the Dragon Sovereigns might feel some type of way about the Primordial One kicking them off their land. But what if I told you that the Primordial One did this for a reason? The Primordial One needed to defeat the Sovereigns to prepare Teyvat. Prepare Teyvat for what exactly? Well, for the arrival of humans. That's right, my friends. Had Thanes not come along and skibbity-boo-bopped the Sovereigns, humanity would have nowhere to go. Thanes defeated the Sovereigns and created Earth, filled it with animals, flowing rivers, and birds, and finally created humans. And ultimately, look, conquest is conquest. The dragons had numbers and still lost. Game's the game, get over it. So let's instead move on to Celestia's hobby of destroying nations. More specifically, let's clue in on Khaenri'ah. It's crucial to note that 500 years ago, Khaenri'ah saw an immense surge of abyssal power, likely due to the alchemical practices of one great sinner Rhine-Doter Gold. As we stated before, powers stemming from the abyss, namely forbidden knowledge, are incompatible with both the human and heavenly realm. Hell, the gigantic nails we see in every nation was cast down to protect Teyvat from forbidden knowledge following the war with the Second who came. As a result, it's not totally unreasonable to put yourself in Celestia's shoes and want to stop the spread of forbidden knowledge quickly and efficiently before it completely destroys everything. And what's the best way to go about this? Well, blocks, evidently. And as for explaining away the curses they imposed on the people of Conria, this, my friends, is a mere example of exemplary punishments. We saw this all the time during the literal Dark Ages, in which these illiterate medieval fucks channeled 110% of their brain power to come up with the most sick ways that they could kill someone, hoping it was disturbing enough that it begs off people from a life of crime. And if your response is, well, collective punishment, I plead the fifth. Them niggas is monsters, okay? But if they're monsters, then I'm a monster. In which case, raw. I'll eat your second kid, okay? Overall, however, Celestia has shown that they want to preserve humanity and stop it from destroying itself. They created humanity out of love, but whether that love is fully eroded and they simply want to preserve humanity in the same way a dystopian government would want to keep its population under control remains to be seen. This makes it sound like I'm a simp for Celestia. No, fuck 12, fuck the government, fuck crack. Bill Clinton didn't have sex with her. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Who knows?